35 stories from people who have killed, according to Reddit. Let's call it number 35. I lived in a good neighborhood, but two men tried to rape and murder my mother and niece, so I had to kill two people. I have posted this story before, if it sounds familiar. I work the night shift, so I normally get home around 1 to 1:30 a.m., and most times my mother is asleep this time. However, I could see the living room lights were on and two big shadows were moving around in my house. This was extremely out of the ordinary, so I unclipped my Smith & Wesson from my holster and slowly peeked in through the window. Well, there were two guys in their mid-40s in my living room, throwing things around and rummaging through drawers. One man had a handgun, and I figured I could wait and call the police from outside of the house and keep an eye on them to make sure they don't head for the bedrooms on the second floor. However, when I glanced to the couch, I saw my mother huddled with my 12-year-old niece, who must have been spending the night. I knew if I waited for the cops, this could go south before they got there. I was able to signal my mother to cover my niece's eyes and ears. I waited till the men were on the far side of the room. I turned the doorknob and burst into the house with my weapon pointed at the man with the pistol. I told him in a surprisingly commanding voice to drop his weapon. Then it happened. It felt like slow motion. I saw his arm start to flick forward, and I fired 3 rounds into center mass. The second man reached behind his back, and I had no choice but to put 4 rounds into him. What I can tell you is it's not like the movies, where a person dies instantly. In real life, people gurgle, cry, ask for family members, ask why you did it, and so on. But I wouldn't change what I did, ever. Well, there's that. As we roll up to number 24 on this list, because there's another one. Throwaway, for obvious reasons. A few years ago, I was home from college for a weekend, and was sitting on Reddit on my computer in my room. My parents have a 2-story house with a balcony looking over the front door area. I thought I heard a weird sound from downstairs, so I sat still and listened. Then I heard a window shatter and voices. I had just recently bought a pistol since I was the only person I knew who didn't own a gun. I grabbed it out of my sock drawer and quietly walked over to the balcony. I definitely heard voices that I didn't recognize. I quietly walked back into my room and called 911, and I told them what was going on and that I was armed. They told me to stay in my room and lock the door. I then heard my mother scream downstairs. Fuck. I thought she was still out with her friends. I didn't hear her come home. I dropped my phone and ran downstairs and found 3 guys in the living room. All 3 were facing away from me, and one was trying to open my mother's bedroom. That one had a shotgun. I honestly had no idea what to do. I'd rehearsed this situation before in my head, but actually having it happen was completely different. I could hear my mother screaming from her room, and my hands were shaking. It was like I was not actually there, just along for a wild ride. Well, I opened fire on the one by the bedroom door. He went completely limp and crumpled. I figured he was done for now, so I turned and shot at the other 2 guys in the living room. I hit one in the leg while they were trying to get back out of the glass door they broke in through. I chased the 2 in the backyard and tried to keep shooting, but only managed to get off 1 shot because I had run out of bullets at that point. I ran back inside and went to my mom's bedroom. The guy was still sitting there all crumpled, but I didn't know if he was still a threat. So I kicked him in the head, and he fell over. I took his gun, and I convinced my mom to let me inside the room. We stayed there for what felt like hours, though it was only a few minutes, before the police came and cleared the house. They found the other guy in a neighboring city at a hospital. The staff called the police when a guy came in with a gunshot wound. Thankfully, I live in Texas, where there is a castle doctrine, and there was never any question as to whether I was in the right or in the wrong. I honestly have never felt bad for what I had to do. I felt bad for kicking the guy who turned out to be already dead, but still, I'll do it all over again if I have to. I'm more protective of my mom, and after graduating college, I moved back for a while. My mom had no idea I even owned a gun. She always has been afraid of them, but she's learning how to use them and getting more comfortable with them. Well, isn't that something? As we roll up to number 23. I'm copying and pasting my post from another similar thread here. Please don't gild me or anything like that. It felt weird the first time. I worked as a bouncer in California for 5 years while I went to college. There were lots of fights and squabbles, but they usually ended with no one getting hurt, with a few exceptions. One in particular was a fellow who ran in, jumped over the bar, and started throwing the bottles everywhere. Then he lit a match and threw it on the ground. Fire didn't spread or do anything because it missed the alcohol, but I was grabbing him and hauling him back over the bar to restrain him while he called the cops. He slashed me across the neck, clavicle, and chest with a switchblade, and when I grabbed his arms to protect my face, he cut my face 6 more times. 96 stitches. I was on my own. Just some kids in the bar and a female bartender, so I just pushed his knife back into his throat while he kept trying to slash at my face, snapping his wrist in half in the process. I wasn't even trying to kill or do anything like that. I was just scared shitless. I was going to die defending a bar. Even worse was while I was trying to stop his bleeding, he was still swinging at me. He was definitely on some uppers. My guilt is that even though I was bigger and more experienced, I wasn't able to solve the problem without any serious injury, so I killed someone. With 9 witnesses, cameras, and 1 phone video, there was obviously nothing criminal, but I can't touch someone's arms or hands without feeling like I'll snap their wrist in half, backwards. It was sickening. Of course, I quit the next day. He was the ex-boyfriend of another bartender who wasn't even there that day. I think he might have killed the bartender that was there, though, so I'm glad I was there. I'm at the bartender, ooh, and you're looking for me. As we roll up to number 22, it was 2010. And during the height of our operation in Mariah, Afghanistan, my unit was pinned down by sniper and small arms fire. I know this is a war zone, so it might be a little bit different terminology than a self-defense, but regardless, it has the same feeling. I was carrying a M203 grenade launcher and was told to put an explosive round in the building where we were receiving fire. After that battle, we did our damage assessment of the area in the building where I had shot the grenade. Inside were 2 dead military-aged males, along with a child and a woman. I'm assuming a family that was in there when I shot. I did not really know how to take it at the time, and even as I'm writing this, it's probably about the 5th time I've thought about it. I was excited to use my weapon against an enemy in a combat zone, but to see possible innocents die at my hands was a little overwhelming. Sometimes I still see that woman and child in my dreams, and in similar looking people walking down the road. Man, I'm probably gonna change the track. Give me a second. How about... What's this one sound like? Seems like that's trying a bit hard. What's this one again? Oh yeah, I like this one. Let's do that one. Well, hope everybody's having a great time in the stream. I gotta keep it down again because I am not alone, so forgive me. But as we travel up to number 21, I may have told this story already, but here it is for people that haven't heard it. I'm a police officer, and part of my job is dealing with dangerous people. So this one night, it was pretty quiet, about mid-July, and I remember it being really hot and humid outside. I'm just sitting in the car with my partner at the time when I hear the call go out, assault in progress at insert location here. So we go over, and out of nowhere, the guy just smashed the other guy in the head with a baseball bat. I still remember the distinct clink sound it made going off of the other guy's skull. By this point, I draw my firearm and telling this guy the usual drop it, turn around, hands over your head. But no, today this guy wanted a fight. Instead of doing what he was told, he just bolts for me and has the bat ready, about to swing for my head. Fired 3 rounds, center mass, and the guy fell. Was not happy that my night had to end like that, but as far as I'm concerned, I saved myself from getting killed by some psycho with a bat. Autopsy showed methamphetamine in the guy's system. Meth, guys, not even once. Went home that night to my wife and kids and was grateful that I didn't freeze up, or it could have been me in the ground. That guy that was hit with the bat didn't end up making it either. Turns out they got into a fight over drugs. Meth is a hell of a drug. Well, as we travel up, number 20. I was bouncing in a bar in Florida when a fight broke out on the dance floor. I stepped in between the 2 guys to break things up, and as I had one guy backing off, the other started pounding on me. I was able to get behind the guy and wrap my arms around him. He wiggled enough to where my arms got around his neck. He kept jerking, and I heard a snap and released. He was gone. Life since then has been a series of ups and downs. I have since left the bar club scene. That day will haunt me for the rest of my life. It was an accident. Holy shit. He killed himself. Alicia McNeil says, Kyle, I was wondering, how can I get a hold of you? Sounds like a question a new person might ask. Isn't my username Kyle on just about everything that I ever do? And isn't every night another night for me to go, hey, use my name to get a hold of me on this platform? I have a friend who does amazing music that you would love for your streams and lists. Actually, the reason I use what I use is because I have 100% certainty that Kevin is never going to flip a switch and decide that he doesn't want his music in my videos, because if that were ever to occur, everything that it's already in would have to be shut down off of YouTube. So no offense, but it's 1,000% no thanks. Even if I have, them saying that, they'll never flip the switch and make it so that I can't use it, or even if I get it in writing, I just use it because I'm comfortable with it, and it makes sense. After all, I wouldn't want to have to kill somebody. You know how it is. As we travel up to number 19, I've killed someone. And it took me years to share my experience with even my closest friends. I was 15 at the time, about a week from turning 16. Oh, this is really gonna appeal to all the little kids in the stream. Corny ass little basic motherfuckers. I'm kidding. I was 15 at the time, about a week from turning 16, and a little over a week from my first day of high school. I was doing what any other 15-year-old would be doing during the last week of summer, staying up in the wee hours of the night playing video games. It was about 3 a.m, and I was thoroughly entranced in my Xbox. My room was on the second floor of the house in the back, above the dining room. Suddenly I hear a huge crash of breaking glass right from below me. Right from below me. The dining room had a large sliding glass door that went out the back. Aaron Deers, why the hell are you always telling people to do that? Everybody freaking knows that they can do that. So get over yourself. I don't know why people come in here instructing people to do that if it's never crossed their damn mind. Get over yourself. And Skyward, stop talking about the bookmarks. Is this your first stream? I'm really gonna become a murderer.
It's ya boy Wet Sponge.
Kazuichi Soda says, it's your boy Wet Sponge. I feel like I remember a user by the name of Wet Sponge. I appreciate the 350. And by appreciate, I mean, I hope you weren't banned. A lot of people do stuff to get themselves banned.
Well, it was about that time that I noticed this 8 stories tall and was a crustacean from the Plesiosaurus.
The Loch Ness Monster.
I said, damn it, monster!
As we continue this entry. It was about 3 a.m, and I was thoroughly entranced by my Xbox. My room was on the second floor of the house in the back, above the dining room. Suddenly I hear a huge crash of breaking glass coming right from below me. Well, the dining room had a large sliding glass door and went out to the back deck. I'm the only one up in the house at this hour, as I lived with my grandparents, who are both heavy sleepers. I quickly grabbed the 1911 that my grandpa trusted me to keep in my room, along with a flashlight, and went to investigate. A flashlight, nigga, come on. As I made my way down the stairs, I could hear people casually talking and laughing in the kitchen. I rounded the bottom of the stairs and had a line of sight into the kitchen. My heart was pounding out of my chest, and it was hard to hold again steady as I saw an unfamiliar man holding a knife in the kitchen. Son of a bitch. Well, I emptied the magazine into his chest from about 10 feet away and loaded a second one. I slowly approached the kitchen and made sure nobody else was there. I checked on him ripping off his shirt to see if he could be saved. There was no way. At this point, my grandma came out of his room on the first floor with his gun. The whole thing happened in less than a minute, but it felt like forever. The rest of the night was a blur of talking to the police, and I'm not sure what else, but every detail of that 1 minute is burned into my memory. His brother who also broke into my house, saw him get shot and fled out the back door. He turned himself in a few days later. I tried to have a normal life from that point on. I started high school the next week and celebrated my birthday like normal. I don't feel bad for what I did, but I do wish it never happened. This 15-year-old dude killed a motherfucker. I got this dude all wrong. I got this guy all wrong. Faith says it's been 35% for 5 minutes. I hope she's not talking about a download she's in the middle of. Again, guys, I appreciate for my volume that you pardon me tonight, because I'm not alone, so I'm trying to keep it down. Here's hoping my nostrils don't get clogged up either. So as we roll up, we arrive at number 18, but not really number 18 because there's another list. Not sure if this was accidental, but while in college in my first apartment, I came home from work at 3 a.m. Some dude was in the hallway outside my door, and I had a bad feeling about it. I paused and went to get the mail, hoping that he would leave. Nope. I come back and he is waiting at my door. I asked him what was up, and he said he was looking for John. My name is not John, and I lived...
Thanks for a dang death list, Kyle. You make me moist.
I appreciate you. These lists are all for you. Thank you, Callum Brady. He was looking for John, and my name is not John, and I lived alone. I asked him to move and let me in my door. He told me to fuck off and get John. I slid between him and the door, opened it, and he pushed his way in. I pushed him out. He took a swing at me. I swung back, hitting him in the eye, which caused him to fall back and hit his head. Out cold. Forever. Apparently, John was the guy who lived in the apartment before me. The dead guy spent 5 years in jail because of John ratting him out for drugs. Dead guy came to get revenge. Ended up getting dead. What a way to get out of jail. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Well, as we continue to number 17, it reads, not really a throwaway as such. It's still embedded in my mind, and I still get counseling for it. When I was 14, I'm currently 19, a friend and I had a falling out. He quickly found a new group of friends, which were a bad crowd. He swiftly forgot about our friendship. He and I had been friends since year 2 up until year 7, so about 5 years, give or take. He and a friend of his had been following me home from school, which was about 15 minutes of a walk. They were both the typical Ashays, you know, bum bag, Adidas, shoes, Nike Polo, the works. They approached me when I had to stop to cross the road. It started with a nudge, then some pushing, then a punch was thrown. That punch was mine. I ran as soon as it made contact and didn't look back. I wanted to get it to safety in my house. A few days later, I found that he passed away in the hospital from blunt force trauma from getting knocked unconscious after my hit knocked him to the ground and he hit his head on the gutter. The pain caused is one I don't think I'll ever let down. His mom eventually forgave me, which I'll admit did lift a massive amount of the weight off of my shoulders, but nothing will ever be able to outweigh my actions, and their consequences. Want to know what one of the worst parts is? We fell out over a fucking girl. How pathetic is that? You heard it here first, folks. Bros before hoes. Or death, maybe. Who knows? Well, let's roll up to number 15. I was 17. My parents had gone out for the night, so I was home with my little sisters, or just a little sister who was 5 at that time. A man broke into our house around 11 p.m. and I heard the glass breaking when he busted one of our windows. My first thought was to protect my sister, so I made her hide in my closet in my room. I gave her the cell phone and told her to call 911. We were watching a movie at the time, so the TV was on, but most of the lights in the house were off. I could hear him moving around the living room, on the other side of the house from my room. I was able to sneak into my parents' room and grab my dad's rifle. When I stepped back in the hallway, he saw me. I shouted that the police were coming and that I was armed, so he'd better leave. It was obvious in my voice cracking that I was terrified. He laughed at me, and then he charged. I shot him twice in the chest. I kept the gun on him as I walked over to his body to kick away any weapons he had. He was completely unarmed. I think he only intended to rob our home, and had I hidden with my sister, he might have never even known we were there. The police arrived a few minutes later, a few minutes after he died. I just watched him the whole time, and I remember the movie was still playing in the background. I don't feel sorry for that man, and I don't regret what I did. Well,
I love you, Dad.
Kazuichi Soda, I appreciate you. 1069 is a strange number, but I like that the jar's filling up. Thanks to you. I feel like my urge to murder is diminishing, if only slightly. I love you, Kazuichi. What a stupid name. Tell us the meaning of your name, dude. As we continue to number 12, I was 19. Someone shot at me in Iraq from a hillside while I was in the gunner's seat of my Humvee. We were traveling away from his position. I was the last truck, turret facing 6 o'clock. My hands weren't on my weapon at all. It was dark, so I really don't know what happened, but thanks to the first 5 rounds of my belt being tracers, I know that if he was still alive, he is incredibly lucky. My very first round went dead center of his muzzle flash. The other 149 followed suit. No fire was returned after I started firing. I sleep like a baby every night. That motherfucker started it, and I finished it. As we arrive at number 10. This happened when I was 16. By that time, I had been taking kickboxing for almost 2 years. I always loved it because it's a workout plus self-defense. I'm a tutor at an after-school center in one of the more run-down areas of my city. It had just snowed, and the main lot was packed, so when I arrived, I had to park my car on the other side of the bridge in the public parking area. At the end of the day, I stayed later than usual to help one of my kids finish his paper. Then I had to clean up. Finally, I helped shovel the walkway. I'm wicked big into helping other people, but I'm also overly confident about my ability to defend myself. Probably because I used to live in the inner city before we moved to the suburbs. I don't get freaked out over walking alone. Are you Asperger's, mate? I don't think people talk like this about themselves. Get over yourself. After I left the center, I went to walk half a mile, and it was over the bridge to the parking lot. I was just about over the bridge when I see this mangy-looking guy step out from behind one of the poles. One of the poles that held up the bridge. I noticed him and saw how shady he was acting, but I didn't switch sides or anything. I just got a tighter grip on my keys. I always walk at night with my keys stuck in between my fingers because that's what we're taught to do. So one could use them as a shiv if necessary. What? So this guy starts coming at me. I go to cross the street and he walks faster, so I start to hustle. But this was a big dude and he grabbed me and pushed me up against the side of the bridge. I had this this is gonna be rape moment, which really sucks. You're a woman? I was like shit and just instinctively punched out with my keyed hand right in the guy's stomach. The keys fell, but he stumbled back. I got this burst of adrenaline and he came back at me to not fucking get raped. And just kept going, sending hooks at his head and jabs and crosses when he come back at me. He grabbed my wrists and kept trying to push me down, but I kept doing non-stop roundhouses to his sides, maybe not super effective, but done like we had learned in class until he fell back. Then I planted a front kick in his chest and he stumbled away from me into the street, into oncoming traffic. The person who hit him called the police, and he was transported to the hospital. He ended up dying later that night. I never got therapy because nothing actually happened. I was only scratched up a bit, but it's almost a year and a half later, and I still hear the squish that the key made when they went into his abdomen, and see his eyes go wide as he fell back into the street right before the car hit him. I didn't have to do that last kick that made him go into the car. I just kept thinking in my head about how it was over, or how it wasn't over, until I was dead, or he was dead, or unconscious, or just debilitated in some way. I remember seeing the car coming, and consciously thinking that if I kicking him hard enough, he'd get hit by the car and could stop. He'd get hit or the car could stop and I'd get help. I didn't think he'd die though, because I figured that the car would hit the brakes and not hit him as hard. Oh my God, you're such a woman. Forgive me, that's rude for me to imply that she's long-winded because she's a female. But yeah, whatever, traumatizing experience, she needs to get it out. Maybe this is her therapy, she hasn't seen a therapist, etc. Kill me. Not really, though. We like to be the ones who do the killing in this thread. Hope everybody in the stream's having a fantastic night. I can't even believe that bar's getting filled up. You guys are nuts. Don't worry about filling up that bar. Just sit back, have a good time. Maybe take your clothes off. Who knows? Number 9. In high school, I intervened when somebody attacked one of my friends with a knife. This guy had 2 friends. cut through the campus for some reason and threatened several people with a knife. The school called the police, but my friends and I were totally unaware. We had planned on meeting in the student parking behind the stadium. When I got there, I saw this guy swing a knife at my friends. He had driven them back against the stadium perimeter fence by the time I got there. I ran up and shoved him, and he turned and swung at me. The first swing wasn't even close. The second one got me. I stepped in to grab him to take him down. He stopped in, swinging the knife at my head. I deflected the shot and got stabbed in the shoulder before I took him down. I kneed him in the gut, and when he doubled over, I picked him up and slammed his head first into the concrete. What I remember is the sound of his skull cracking. I can't describe it, and I will never forget about it. He got me in the crease where my shoulder and back come together to form my left armpit. The surgeon said that if the knife had come a half-inch lower, rather than sticking me in the shoulder, it would have severed all the veins under my arm and I would have bled out in the parking lot. I couldn't feel anything in my arm for a long time afterwards, and the cops saw the entire fight unfold. They got there just as I did, or just as I was about to stomp on his head, and knocked me away from him. The knife was stuck in my shoulder, and one of the cops pulled it out. My friend and I gave a statement in the hospital to a responding officer and a detective. Nobody ever mentioned it to me again. I never asked what happened to him, and I don't really know. The detective called my dad that night, and I've always assumed it was to tell him that the guy died. It had to be a bad day for my dad, coming within half an inch of losing a child and then learning that the child had taken a life. This was just a few years after his tour in Vietnam. It had to bring back some bad memories. It was 38 years ago last March. Sorry about that pause in the middle of that story. You probably noticed it, and it's because I was reading what Sabrina said. Sabrina took the time to let us all know that she had to leave, saying that she loves me, but as a Vegas native, I cannot hear about death, shooting, and guns anymore. This is not the list for me tonight. I just keep being reminded of what happened and my hurt friends. Death is all around us, and I'm not telling anybody how they need to feel, whether they should feel more or feel less. Naturally, things will occur that have varying intensities of how it affects us, let's say. But just because it's happening to our friends or loved ones doesn't make it any more intense than the fact that it's pretty much happening all the time. What happened in Vegas is a massacre. I don't mean to say anything to belittle what occurred or what went down there. And I'm sorry that you're going through what you're going through, but I hope it's brought you a bit closer to how mortal we all are and how close many of us can come to losing our life. You've heard me go on about it before in a Kyle stream. You don't need to be eating the wrong way to have a heart attack. You don't need to be doing the wrong things in your life to suddenly have an aneurysm in the brain and die. Somebody that's drunk driving could hit you and then you would die. You know what I mean? Something could go wrong in a fucking plane and that bitch could crash right into where you're at. When it's your time, it's your time. And when it's some people's time, it's some people's time. And death happens whether we hear about it or not. This is tragic because it's just one psycho douche going crazy on innocent people who are trying to enjoy themselves. But it's worse, man. Some people live and their lives are gone. You know what I mean? They're just existing. Some people are being tortured. Some people who have been forgotten about. Quite literally. Some people who are assumed dead. Some people who are assumed dead are locked up somewhere being tortured right now. There are things worse than death. What does that mean? Why am I saying this to you in the context of what's happened, the tragedy? I'm just saying, I hope that you reach a point where you become aware and not numb, but molded by the experience of what the hell happens around you, and that you live your life in a way where you are aware that what you know, what you have, where you are, those around you, these things can drift away in the matter of moments. Doesn't matter if you're from Vegas or not, What matters is that we separate ourselves from bureaucrats and government officials and CEOs and douchebags at the top of fucking ladders that that they had to step on the backs of other people to get to, because they don't regard human life in the same way that we do. And the same cold way that you'll see the internet make a meme out of something tragic like this that just happened is the same cold way that a whole bunch of niggas in suits are laughing and clinking their champagne glasses together because it has nothing to do with them. And in the same way, when you say, like, as a Vegas native, you got to be careful, because, and this is the rude part, but if it didn't happen in Vegas, and maybe you didn't have to hear about it as much, would you be as sympathetic? And that's the tragedy. We need to remember that humans are humans, and even though people suck, no one knows this more than I do. Yes, people suck. We got to try to love them for who they are, and not what they do. So wherever we are, we should remain sympathetic. To whomever is capable of receiving that sympathy. As we continue up this list, we arrive at number 8. Throwaway, because people know my Reddit information. Some years ago, 3 men broke into our home in the middle of the night and started going through all of our shit. One of them must have knocked something over, which woke me up to hear them talking downstairs. I yelled out that the police were on their way, wife was calling at the same time, and that I was armed. I don't know exactly what they wanted, but 2 of them came upstairs, moving towards the bedroom where we were holed up. And I wasn't taking any chances. It was dark in the hallway, but I knew that it wasn't anybody I knew. So I fired a bunch of times down the narrow hallway, and they both probably died instantly or bled out very quickly. I'm not sure. I was more or less deaf after the gunfire, so I don't know if there was any sounds. Turns out neither of the 2 were armed. There was no legal aftermath. We lived in a castle doctrine state at the time, so there was no charge on my part. They picked up the last guy close by with things from our house and a gun. He was charged with felony murder for participation. He took some kind of deal that got him 30 plus years, I think, which also meant that I didn't have to testify. I wasn't really interested in that part. I was offered some counseling, which I took, but I didn't feel that I needed to, so I stopped. I'm fine with it. I wish I hadn't been in the situation, but I don't regret what I did. I wouldn't kill a person for my TV, but I also won't risk the safety of my wife or myself. Life is the same as before. After firing, I remember feeling relief, and that my initial fear completely vanished. It was sort of was that really it moment? I don't know. Honestly, the more surprising thing in this case was that my homeowner's insurance didn't want to cover the cost of the shot-up hallway and the bloody floor. The police sent someone to clean up the once liquid blood, but it had gone through the untreated floorboards and made a huge stain on the kitchen ceiling below. We had to replace the whole thing, which was a huge pain in the ass. The metallic smell was awful until it was all taken care of. Smelled like a little bit like a butcher shop. Yeah, baby. Yeah. People were saying, did the chat just go black? Yeah, it happened for me as well. You saw the flicker on the stream chat. Pretty hilarious. Wesley Davis says, just sent you $10 on PayPal directly, Kyle. Hello from Star Army Role-Playing Forum. Keep the videos coming. Wonder what Star Army Role-Playing is all about. Wonder if you guys are like LARPers or just friendly role players. Haven't seen a lot of that since like the early days of the internet. That's charming. I appreciate you, Wesley, and the stream thanks you. As we continue up this list, we arrive at number 7. Can you believe it? Nearly 25 years ago, I was living at my parents' old 2-story house in the middle of the farm in Florida. They had both moved to a bigger city and were still trying to sell the old farmhouse. I was 20 and too old to move with my parents to their new place, so they let me stay at the house by myself until they sold it. This allowed me to finish college and to save money I had made at a part-time job. It was about my 3rd month being there alone. The closest other house was my uncle's house, about 3 miles away. The closest town was a tiny town a little over 10 miles away. It was about 11:30 p.m. and I was reading in my bed, parents' old bed, upstairs, and I heard a loud banging on the door. I walked out of my room and looked over the balcony at the front door and saw someone staring up at me through one of the side stained glass panes. It was a man in his 30s. I've never felt such a surge of panic. I called my uncle and it rang and rang. I grabbed my .357 Magnum that my dad had left for me and told me 1,000,000,000 times to keep close to me at all times. And I called 911. Once the dispatch operator was on the phone with me, the guy was kicking the door. One loud kick every 10 seconds. The 911 dispatcher told me someone would be there in less than 5 minutes and advised me to tell her which room I was in. I was terrified, and I could hear the door starting to crack. I put the phone down and cocked that .357 Magnum and stayed at the top of the stairs, small winding staircase. He kept kicking, and as the door was about to give way, he looked through the stained glass window again, right at me. I pointed the gun at him, and he made this expression that I can only describe as excitement. He kicked, and the door gave way and slammed open and broke the window pane. He ran up the stairs, and as he took the first 2 steps, I stood up and shot him right in the stomach. He yelled and fell back and hit the foyer floor and started moaning non-stop, writhing. I stood like a statue with the gun pointed at him until the cops arrived. When the first officer entered the front door, I pointed the gun at him, and he screamed at me to drop it. For some reason, I lowered the gun, but couldn't let go of it. He said that everything was going to be okay, but I had to let go of the gun. A few minutes later, the ambulance pulled up for some reason. It wasn't until I saw paramedics that I put the gun down and started crying. The man died en route to the ER that night. The officers told me he had a rap sheet a mile long. He also had a .45 in his glove compartment. They took me to the police station, and my parents drove back that night and took me to their new home. The house sold a month later, and I never stayed there alone again. My uncle was gone for the night to visit his other farmlands in Okeechobee. I don't really ever think about this event anymore. It takes a specific inquiry for me to really remember it. I now have a concealed memory, or a concealed carry, for a 38 special that I always keep in my purse, and I would never give that up. 38 special? What are you, a lady? I'm kidding. There's nothing wrong with it. It's got stopping power. That's all that matters. Stopping power on a damn weapon. My 38 special. I'll hit you with my 38 special, motherfucker. Don't play with me. I'm kidding. I'm so sorry. See that 357? Now that's what I'm talking about. That's what I mean. 357. God damn. I'll be not the special. It's a Magnum. Baby, come on. Yeah, boy. Excuse me. Just what I'm talking about, baby. It's high noon. As we continue up this list. Sorry, I was wondering if that Genevieve asshole was ever in the stream chat again. I feel like I saw her name, but I may have been tripping. Someday, I'll get that Genevieve for all of her lies. Lies. As we travel up, we arrive at number 6. In 2006, I was hunting in Heronville, Texas. You can't be pronouncing that right. One morning, he dropped me off at the blind and wished me good luck. My dad. The sun was barely coming up, and it was one of the only times I had ever seen fog while hunting. After 15 minutes go by, and the animals begin to move. There were 2 doe on my left, a doe in the road in front of me, but nothing on my right. About 10 minutes after seeing the second doe come out, I thought, I bet a third one will be coming out. On the remaining road, I was feeling lucky, so I glanced over. I saw 4 men quickly cross the road and disappear into the brush. I looked down to pick up my radio to tell my dad because I was really scared at the time. When I looked up again, they were back on the road, kind of jogging towards me. I told my dad, he told me to stay put. I'll be right there. Fire a warning shot. I carried my rifle, .270, and a sidearm for pigs. I speak Spanish, so I told the men to stop, and I waved my hand out of the window. Holy shit. The 3 men stopped in the middle of the road, but the man on the right kept jogging and was ushering them to follow him. The second time I screamed, my voice cracked really hard. For whatever reason, he started laughing and began sprinting towards me. My dad always taught me, if I was ever in trouble, to shoot 3 times consecutively as a distress signal. So with my pistol, I shot 3 times out the window into the air. I made sure the hatch to the blind was locked and checked for a chambered round in my rifle. I just remember shaking and simultaneously hearing my dad on the radio calling my name over and over. I stood up and realized I could no longer see any of the 3 men or the man who was zeroing in on me. So I shot out the window with my rifle. It was about 5 seconds later that I heard shuffling outside and a big thud on the blind door. He was trying to open it, all the while laughing hysterically. A few seconds after that, the latch began to give, and he jammed a knife into the spacing so he could pry it open. What kind of motherfuckers hear gunfire and still zone into a fucking target? God damn. And it started working. He gave it 2 hard yanks, and the second one, the door came off about 80%. I could see his smile, and he showed me his knife. Then he wiped sweat off his forehead, and he was staring straight at me, just laughing. I had my .270 pointed at him, sitting in my lap, and just took the safety off. I pulled the trigger once his left arm got about 3 feet from me. I hit him in the neck. He let out a big groan and fell out onto his back. Then I shot another 2 in the doorway so that my dad would hear it. I heard a bunch of footsteps and then it got very quiet. I could hear the man choking and gargling on his blood. Another shot went off outside the blind a couple seconds later, and I could see the dirt being kicked up into the opening of the torn off door. Then I heard my dad's voice call my name. I started crying, and my dad picked me up and closed my eyes and put me into the truck. I left my gun, my bag, oranges, and water behind. He drove me back to camp, and by then, his friends had come back on the 4-wheeler we had. They kept rubbing my back for about 20 minutes until a lot of border patrol units rolled in. A lady named Vicky took me back to their Suburban and gave me Gushers from her purse. I bought some Gushers today, I'm not even joking. She asked me if I had gone to the movies lately and asked me if I liked school. A few minutes later, a helicopter flew in and picked up his body. He was a 26-year-old man from Mexico. I don't know what happened of the other men. I was 14. I feel bad. I didn't want to hurt him. The guy just charged me for no reason. I felt like I had no other choice. The rifle he used. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. As we continue up the list, we arrive at number 5. Well, throwaway for obvious reasons. When I was about 14, Jesus Christ, what's going on with these 14 and 15-year-old stories, man? Little white kids make the most cold-blooded killers. Broke in my house, man, and then I shot that motherfucker. Goddamn. I shot him right in the balls. And I shot him in the neck hole. And he was all like, my family. When I was about 14, one summer, my family went to have one of those times at my grandpa's cabin. Okay. You want to try that again? When I was about 14, one summer my family went out to have just some time at my grandpa's cabin. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck just some time is, nigga. He was too old to go out alone now. So we had a nice place to spend summers. Well, Grandpa had bought me a shiny new woodcutting axe to chop wood, and I really liked it. So I carried it with me wherever I went. Which was a lot of places. There were other cabins in our street, but not too many. I went exploring with my Dane/Retriever mix, Pumbaa, a lot. That sounds lovely. We were in a blueberry grove. Nothing but trees and bushes for a long way. I'd seen people here picking blueberries, so I didn't think much of the scrawny older man hunched in the blueberries. It turns out he was setting a bear trap. He was a poacher. And there were a lot of black bears in the area. He saw me and charged me immediately. He had a machete and was screaming at the top of his lungs about me not supposed to have been there. I let go of Pumbaa and he attacked the man, got him down on the ground, but the wrong arm. Pumbaa was trying to protect me, but the poacher was hurting him with the machete. I barely registered running to help him. I had my axe, and I swung it down as hard as I could at him when he got on top of my dog. I ended up hitting the back of his neck. There wasn't any blood, but I felt something give under the hilt. He just kind of fell over. But Pumbaa was hurt bad. I just remember there being so much blood, and I had to carry him back home sobbing to my grandpa. Pumbaa lived, thankfully, though he was never able to run again. They found the poacher dead. I found out later I had shattered a vertebrae in his neck and pinched several nerves, and he just stopped functioning. There wasn't a trial or a hearing or anything. The man had violence-based priors, and I got about a month in juvenile mental wellness holding. I was told that he didn't have a family, but I don't think about it anymore. My parents refused therapy, and I learned to accept that what happened on my own. Pumbaa has since passed away of old age, but he was a brave dog who saw me through a lot before and after this had happened. Well, damn. Here we go. So we arrive at number 3. I used to drive armored trucks in a big city. I'll keep it vague for legal reasons. One day, these two guys started following the truck. They followed us all day. We called it in, but because they technically hadn't done anything wrong yet, the police couldn't do anything. So finally, I was forced to stop for fuel, and that's when they hit us. My door had just opened, and I hadn't even gotten both feet on the ground when they opened up on us. I was standing sort of behind the fuel pump on the opposite side of the shooters, and the first 4 or 5 rounds from their pistols hit the pump. So I draw and immediately return fire while the driver of my truck slams it into gear to start rolling. I grab on, and we boogie right the fuck out of there. I think the whole thing maybe lasted about 10 seconds, maybe less time than that. I emptied my magazine at them, all 16 rounds, and only hit one shooter twice. Both guys lived to flee the scene, but I found out later that the one who was wounded later died of his injuries. And as far as I feel about it, fuck those guys. They were going to kill me for $400 worth of change, going to a convenience store. I don't feel the least bit bad about it. As we roll up to number 2, which might as well be number 1 because 1 is deleted. Let me roll up this and see if I have any other entries here. Yeah, we may have a couple of other entries here, so let's call that one number 3. Number 3. Back in mid-2000s, I was going through a divorce. My whole emotional state was in chaos. I was pretty much a functioning alcoholic and very, very angry. So, I went to a gas station to get smokes after a particularly bad fight with my wife. We were selling the house that I had built, and I was so angry, so hurt. As I was pulling out the gas station, some guy came rocketing out of the car wash area and cut me off. Being in the state of mind I was in, I let loose a long spew of profanity at him, really nasty stuff. He must have been having a bad day, because before I knew it, he was in park and around the front end of his car coming at me with his hands up. I boxed golden gloves in my youth, and the hands up is a universal sign. I was in my car with the window down and very vulnerable. His front end was blocking mine, and I was boxed in. So I jumped out of my car and stepped out of the doorway, and the dude was literally 5 feet from me, coming at me with a vengeance, hands up, ready. So I threw a straight right at him. I don't remember trying to throw it hard. I just did. And kind of like a batter with 2 strikes trying to protect the plate, it worked. I hit him right on the point of the chin. His eyes rolled up immediately, and he started going down. He went down sideways and hit the side of his head on the curb. It was the first part of him to touch the ground, and it killed him. His brain bled. He lasted a week, I think. He had other medical issues as well that exacerbated it. His wife and I talked a lot at the hospital. She never blamed me, which I was very thankful for, because I sure blamed myself for many, many years. Turned into a non-functioning alcoholic, was almost homeless. My whole body hurts thinking about this. I still feel awful. Still cry sometimes. I used to have nightmares about his 2 daughters. They were teenagers. They needed their daddy. And my actions took that from them. Oh God, I accidentally turned on my PS4, son of a bitch. Well, as we arrive at number 2. It was actually 2 guys, home invasion, but I shot both of them with my AR-15. One guy 3 times, the other guy 4 times. It was about 3 a.m., but I was still up trying to get some work done for the next day. I heard the sounds of broken glass hitting the wooden floor. In my living room, I knew something was wrong immediately. My girlfriend and my dog were both asleep in the room, with my niece and nephew were asleep in the room across the hall. I was watching them for the weekend. I woke my girlfriend quietly and told her to stay quiet and call 911. I had my carry gun still on me from earlier that day, but I decided to grab my rifle. I could hear the crunch of broken glass under the feet of the guys downstairs, and had it just been my girlfriend and me in the house at the time, I would have stayed put in the bedroom, but with my niece and nephew across the hall, I didn't want anyone coming upstairs. I positioned myself at the top of the stairs and stayed quiet, hoping that they'd just take my TV or my game consoles from the living room and leave. After about a minute or 2, both of them moved into the downstairs hallway and started heading towards the stairs. I stood up to where they could see me, pointed my rifle at them, and yelled at them to get the fuck out of my house. Before I even finished saying it, one of them raised his pistol and started shooting at me. I didn't see him draw, so he must have had it in his hand, and I didn't notice it. I returned fire and hit both of them several times. Once both guys were down, I just kept my rifle on them and didn't move. I fired 12 shots with 7 hits. They fired 6 shots at me, and they all missed. 2 bullets were recovered from the bookcase I was standing behind. The police arrived about 10 minutes later, and when I saw the lights outside, I lowered my rifle, cleared it, and leaned against the wall. I also took off my carry gun and left it beside my rifle. I don't regret what I did, not in the least. I do look back at it though, and I think about how I made some stupid mistakes. I should have noticed the guy had a gun in his hand immediately, and I should have been quicker on the trigger. I let them get the first shot. If I'd have been hit, things could have gone very differently. Well, I love you all, and I'm glad that you could be here. I hope you forgive me for tonight because I'm not alone, so I have to keep my voice down as usual. I want to thank my amazing patrons for doing what they do. They help me in a big way at the beginning of the month, every month, and they're truly just God's gift to me. Just kidding. They're their own gift, and they make it happen on their own, and I'll never not appreciate them for it. I'd like to thank my spicy sponsors, of which we've actually had a couple of new entries. Wait a minute, why is there a white bar? Okay, there we go. To those who just became sponsors, I'll add you to this, don't you worry. I love you, I appreciate you, and you're wonderful. I'd also like to take the time to thank those who are donating tonight. Talking about your Callum Brady, talking about your Kazuichi Soda. I'm actually 3 things away from being able to complete the gaming computer that I'm planning to use for work on this channel. So I'm actually pretty excited. And then I have 2 series that I'm going to be adding to the Reddit collection, and another one that someone specific asked for an iteration in, so thank you. And thank you all for being here. As we travel up to the last entry. Oh my god, I hate it when the banner repositions itself. There we go. You like my little thumbnail with a little baby, some guns? Stupid. So we travel to number 1 in the list of 35 stories from people who have killed. There you go. Wait a minute. Why is Fat Man saying, "Hey Kyle, we're your anti-period"? Nigga, I hope you're typing on a phone right now and these corrections were made without your consent, because what the fuck does that mean? Laura says, "Great stream, thank you, I've never seen you before." But Fat Man just says, you are, anti-period. You think I'm going to waste a brain cells trying to figure out what the fuck that means? Lexia says, "Good night, Kyle. I love you, but I haven't read the last one yet." What? Ash M says, "I thought you were doing 3 videos today." Strange, because I thought I did do 3 videos today. It's weird. It's weird that I thought I did 3 videos today, but this guy's saying, "I thought you were going to do 3 videos today." Ash, why don't you join me as we take a look? Okay? So this is a video I'm doing today. Let's count that one. I also did a video earlier today, which is October 4th, called 20 Creepy Surveillance Footage Captures. Weird. And then I also made another video called You Are Loved. Maybe you don't count this video because it's only a minute long, and maybe that feels like cheating to you. But I got you on a technicality, fuck bagel. It technically is a video. And I went out of my way to make it. It's a big deal for me. To be honest, I accidentally 100% expect this video to be demonetized, the You Are Loved video. And when it does happen, I'm going to move on to phase 2 of a plan that I have. So never you worry, Ash M, about what the hell I got going on this channel, Bing Bong. And don't get greedy. Greed will lead you to very terrible, terrible places. So we go back to this list. Well, damn, where was I even? Was this it? Let's hope it was. Number 1. When I was 12, I was babysitting for a family in my subdivision. There were 2 little girls, 3 and 6 years old, and a 5-month-old baby. I had experienced babysitting, but wasn't great with babies. I was really nervous and not the most responsible adult kid anyway. Well, I had experienced babysitting, and you read that already, Kyle. The girls were sitting on the living room floor, reading, and the baby started crying from her crib. I picked her up and took her into the kitchen to warm up her milk bottle in the microwave. I simply dropped her. Oh my God. Oh my God. This motherfucker dropped a baby. I have been over this over 1,000 times in my head, and there is no other way I can explain it. I dropped her, and her head hit the tile floor. She was clearly dead immediately. The weirdest part is how calm I felt. Yeah, I guess it ain't your baby, nigga. Like I turned into a robot. I told the girls to go to the basement immediately and called my dad and told him what happened. Then I sat at the kitchen table for 10 minutes while he came over. He drove the girls to our house to be with my mom, then drove me and the body to the hospital. Obviously, nothing could be done. I was not charged because it was ruled an accidental death. There was a chance I could have been charged with criminal negligence, manslaughter, but was not. In part because of my age. This was several decades ago. I still feel it every day. I am a woman and do not think I can ever have children because of it. The family moved, but until they did, I had to throw up every time I drove past their house or saw one of them in the community. Oh my God. Oh my God. That's pretty dark, says someone. But I would never leave a baby that young with a babysitter that young. I don't think children should be babysitters. 12 years old. You damn right. That's where they fucked up. You damn right. 12 years old. You damn right. You damn right. A fat enough baby can squirm out of even a fucking 18-year-old's hand if you ain't crazy. Baby's crazy. 12 years old, you fucked up. Dead baby. Well, that's a Kyle list, baby. You know what I'm talking about? I'm not proud of the entry or anything. I'm just saying, if it's not one thing, it's the other. I figured I could escape kid rape by, going through a whole death list. But dude, here's the crazy part about this list. I could have stopped on the last list, okay? But for no reason at all, I came over to another list. And yeah, there were tons of entries on this list, but I decided I only wanted to read 2, dude. And the top, because all of the other ones were kind of like small and weird, But these 2 seemed story worthy because they were lengthy. And this one had a dead freaking baby in it. Holy crap. Well, I'm going to get a nice computer. And only then can the spirit of the baby live on through the content that we make in the baby's honor. Yeah, man. Yeah. I didn't know this one was going to be this one, Tom. I really didn't, so I don't know what to say. In case some of you assholes are looking for eye bleach, let's figure that out. I say you assholes, you know why? Because I can't pretend that I'm not the guy that's on Watch People Die all the time. I'm not desensitized to the idea of death. It's just, I love this dog. I fucking love him. He's beautiful. This is gonna be somebody's YouTube persona soon. I should make it mine. You know how many people on YouTube apparently just take a picture of like an animal in different poses and then speak behind it. It's an epidemic and it's strange. It's an epidemic and it's strange. No, Stripes, it's on the wish list and it's for you. It's for you, Stripes, Sarah Bishop says. I've never let anyone watch my kids beside immediate family. Well, Lady Spook says, I feel like I need a hug and a hot chocolate and a puppy or something now. Well, Stripe says, do you need me to find you one or do you have one in mind? It's right on the freaking wish list. I feel like I must really be lagging behind the stream because I don't know if you guys can hear me well or not. Yeah, here it is. That's what it's like on the back when the giant naked Santa exploded. And here's what it's like on the front. Happy human holiday. I like it. It could probably use a bit of green, but you know, what do you want? It's an ugly... I wonder what it looks like on somebody. You think somebody's bought it? Damn. She says it's everything I hoped and dreamed it would be. I love frumpy girls like this. That girl's so frumpy. Frumpy to the maximum. Frump it. Now frump it. Yeah. Frump it. Callum Brady says, I watched the pilot last night. It's a very funny show. Of what? Rick and Morty? The pilot's trash, dude. Whether you believe it or not, that episode doesn't get into its stride until around episode 3 or 4. You should really check that show out, because the pilot is probably the least Rick and Morty episode of all of them, but it really gets into its stride. It's good stuff. Give it a shot. Trust me, you'll like it. Trust me, you'll like it. Well, guys, I apologize for that list if you're not into the dankness the way that I am. But I'm just glad I could be here tonight, as I try to be here every night. Aww. Aww. Aww, look at him. He does it all the time. That cat is big. And is she in scrubs? It may just be a t-shirt, but I think she's in scrubs, dude. I don't trust girls in scrubs because they're successful, but they're around a lot of penises, you know what I mean? Too many penises, if you know what I mean. Too many penises. What are you trying to get my attention with, Stripes? That's so cute. Oh, Lunar Lad did that. Well done, Lunar Lizzle. Well dizzle. I like the dolphin splizzle. Haven't seen that dolphin in a while, but it's because he's sleeping. And I don't like to wake up the dolphin when he's nice and sleepy. Oh, you woke up? Hey, what's going on? You been listening? You just been listening in the background? You a crazy dolphin. You crazy dolphin. I was gonna try and see if the dolphin nonsense died down, but it looks like we may need to make a dolphin emoji. But I think there's already a dolphin emoji, so we don't need to go there. Oh, guys, I will see you tomorrow. We can go nuts. I love you. If you need to get a hold of me, you know how to. Unless this is your first stream, in which case you probably don't. I love that we do have a dolphin emoji. That's dank. We're gonna need to figure out what another emoji should be, guys, because or maybe you guys can just throw some ideas out now. What should another emoji be? Derailed train, that's good. Fat Man doesn't have an identifier outside of using pictures of clowns for himself. You want a clown emoji? There certainly must be one of those. Are there clown emojis? Timeout emoji, that seems interesting. What's an icon for timeout? When I think an icon for timeout, I think like an hourglass. You know what I mean? Or would it be like a hand? Yeah, it'd be something like that. It'd be something like this without the eye mount. Yeah, it'd pretty much be this. Interesting. Why is the wrist so crooked in that one? Stupid bitch. Timeout. A baby behind bars for gay baby jail. Talk about impossible to animate. You gonna see it's a baby behind the bars, or a baby in a cage. Despite all my rage, I'm still just a baby that you shouldn't have had a 12-year-old babysit. Uh-oh. Guys, I love you, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Stay crazy. Love you.